Let me say that I therefore consider it a pleasure to deliver brief remarks this morning on what I consider to be a very timely occasion as we further work in developing a national climate change adaptation strategy. It has long been recognized that greenhouse emissions from small island states such as St. Kitts and Nevis are negligible in relation to the global emissions. But the threats of climate change and sea level rise to small island states such as ours again are very, very real. Just a few weeks ago, we witnessed the ravages of Hurricanes Irma and Maria to our islands and to our neighbors in the north. You have realized that sectors such as tourism, infrastructure, agriculture, water, finance, and health, just to name a few, have been impacted in some form or other by these adverse impacts. Our very lives were and will continue to be under threat from storms such as these. In response to the current and projected impacts, it is important, therefore, that St. Kitts and Nevis undertake various initiatives that will reduce risks to humans and natural assets, which comes from the change in climate and because of climate vulnerability. St. Kitts and Nevis recognizes that for climate change impacts to be sustainably addressed, it requires work from everyone. For low-lying coastal communities like St. Kitts and Nevis, it is critically important that the necessary measures and actions are put in place to protect our beaches, coastline, infrastructure, roads, utility lines, and buildings, as well as life, our own lives. It is important to ensure that that is protected. Our coastal areas have very little defense against the raging surfs of hurricanes and tropical storms, and the likely consequences of our coast could be significantly damaged if ignored. We must, therefore, implement the necessary measures that ensure that food security, public health, and the availability of fresh and potable water will not be adversely impacted. The truth is that the world's climate is changing and will continue to change at rates unprecedented in recent history, according to the most qualified persons in this field. Further, productive sectors, especially agriculture and tourism, will continue to be adversely affected by what's happening with climate change. We therefore cannot continue business as usual. So I implore all citizens within the public and private sectors to participate and to do their part as we tackle the adverse impacts of climate change, even if it's only through education, but certainly through mitigation and adaptation. I rank mitigation first because certainly we have to reduce those emissions. But of course, adaptation comes next. And that is why even in another aspect of my ministry, we in housing determined that we have to build a harder roof for our houses. And we moved from shingles on low-income homes to galvalume as part of our adaptation policy. The government's approach to climate change has been relatively small, but I consider it to be significant increments. A draft national climate change policy is currently at Cabinet for endorsement. I would have preferred to say it was endorsed, but of course, the very climate change outcomes, the hurricanes, put that on our back burner this month, and so it is not yet adopted by the Cabinet. The policy will guide the country's pathway as it relates to addressing climate change. This is important because although our contributions to global greenhouse gases emissions are small, the impacts of climate change on our nation and our region will be immense. The lessons of Irma and Maria informs us all that mitigation and adaptation have been identified as responses to this phenomenon. One of our greatest challenges will always be in adaptation. Ultimately, this is the main reason why we are here. We need to develop a comprehensive strategy in addressing our adaptation efforts. This consultation is therefore critically important as you identify key priorities and needs of your various sectors that will feed into this strategy. The views and inputs on the impacts, vulnerabilities, and potential adaptation strategies related to climate change are required so that we can craft a strategy that addresses all levels and all sectors. Adaptation is critical because even if the world ceased emitting greenhouse gases today, it is predicted that the Earth's temperature will not stabilize until it is well below 1.5 degrees centigrade increase. At an increase of 1.5 degrees centigrade, we will experience reduction in crop yields, significant bleaching of our coral reefs, and a marked reduction in the availability of water. We have already seen the impacts of that change in rainfall patterns and what it has done to our agriculture. And our response is more drought-tolerant crops should be planted, as well as identify and make available a reliable source of water for our farmers. Food security, which is vital to our nation's health, is and will forever be threatened by climate change. Our commitment to the Millennium Goals therefore demands adaptation methodologies. I therefore wish to express our thanks to Canary for ably assisting us in the development of the climate change adaptation strategy. This project represents one subcomponent of a larger project called the OECS Global Climate Change Alliance Project on Climate Change Adaptation and Sustainable Land Management in the Eastern Caribbean. It is funded by the European Union. And so the government of St. Kitts and Nevis therefore expresses profound thanks to the European Union for their continued financial support that has been provided to us over the years. The Department of Environment will continue to undertake various adaptation and mitigation activities to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis continue to build its resilience to reduce these potential risks. Using climate change initiatives as a driver to undertake various activities can catalyze progress in achieving the country's sustainable development goals. It is important that we note that we have started the work of adaptation in various sectors, and we continue to encourage our people to conserve, preserve, and protect. We also need to create the necessary synergies to avoid duplication of work. Ladies and gentlemen, this therefore means that we must work together as people with one common goal. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to identify and implement adaptation measures in a collective manner. The approach to tackling the adverse impacts of climate change requires the support of not just one or two persons, but of everyone, all of us. We need to ensure that the world remains habitable for generations to come. As such, I want to challenge you, all of you today, to do your part. And as I close, I want to wish each and every one of you a productive and engaging session. Thank you very much.
Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.